give bad news to someone? Wanda smiles. Need to tell someone you've accidentally slept with a relative of theirs? Wanda smiles. Need to tell someone that, sorry, you're fired? One of smiles. Bad news to someone?
Hello, friends! It's me, Colt Sebastian Taylor, for the Longshots here in our Campaign 1 Epilogue. We've got some cameras tonight, including, if she turns it on, Alias.
Yeah, I'm here. I was waiting for a reveal.
Yes, the lovely Alias, who has been drinking since 2 p.m. today.
No, that's not true.
But it's Canadian drinking, so it's not as much as American.
Such a bad image of me already.
Due to inflation and whatnot.
Oh, yeah.
So tonight we'll have some epilogues, some stat rolls, and God willing, because it's us, perhaps the start of Campaign 2. Of which we have new characters, some new portraits, but the same crazy players. So let me throw it over to the man who has shepherded us through high and low, Mr. Buck himself.
Hello, guys. Every week I ask you the same question, but this time it feels a little different. How are we feeling this week?
Bittersweet.
Yeah.
On time.
On time.
Definitely.
100% on time. All right.
I spent a lot of time on this epilogue, so I hope everyone likes it.
Good. I've instructed the players since when we ended Campaign 1, it was going into the wee hours of the morning. So I had instructed everyone to do their best and kind of explain what their characters have been up to over the next 20 years, a date which will become important as, pun intended, time goes on. Before I kick it over to the players, though, I think I will have Colt probably do the weirdest intro to an epilogue. That just sounds fun to me. But I'll start out with exactly what's happening in the world over this time, maybe touch on a few key NPCs. If I do forget somebody or you want to know somebody specifically, let me know. I'll tell you how things went for them. This is also a good point to reiterate anything you may have thought of and want to ask me. If I can give you an answer without spoiling a plot point for Campaign 2, I will let you know. After I complete the world, we'll kick it back over to whoever wants to go. I thought about having you guys roll initiative one last time as your last characters to do your epilogues. If that's something that interests you, we can have you roll initiative. We'll take a look.
I like that.
I'll go to whoever rolls the highest.
Because then it's like we don't have to decide. It's just kind of gonna be like.
Can I roll off my character sheet though, so I get my advantage?
Yeah, 100%.
Yes, and last time is our characters.
Yep, this will be the last time as your characters.
Oh god, this is gonna be terrible.
With an asterisk. Please do not delete your level 20 sheets. I will not be deactivating them. The Campaign 1 will stay as it is. I may need to access them in the future, and you may need to access them in the future. You never know what I might do.
No.
So,
all right.
While you guys are looking to roll initiative, Colt, whenever you're ready, bring us in to the end.
Okay. Last week on the climactic ending of the Longshots Dungeons & Dragons, the Longshots mounted up and headed to Rafafra to see what was going on. Joining them was Star, Reyna, Celise, and the Renegades, all trying to track down Scion and stop him before he could kill and absorb who is recreating the world. Abnica. Recreating the world. Once arriving, got a little tour of what was going on. Colt and Star talked about how far they had come. Everyone was a little bit nervous that something was going to pop out, but once they got there, she was there, surrounded by the Geshakri, who were chanting and whatnot to reform this world that had been long dead. Just then, Star doubled over and vomited up. She had too much Scion in the last 3 months or something, and vomited him up. He reformed, and a climactic battle ensued. The renegades tried to pull her away, but they were clamped down by magical clamps and whatnot, and grappling, whereas the rest of the Longshots fought it. Some got knocked down, back up again, but eventually, through continuous damage in combat, Star was killed and absorbed, completely destroyed by Scion. And then in short order, so was Abitrine, but Scion was defeated. There was nothing to bring either one of them back. So, there was only one way to do it, and that was via Valhalla's wish spell. That had a really, like a 33% chance of breaking due to changing time-space continuum. She had to make a choice. Who would she try first? Colt, devastated by the death of Star and Abitrine, was beside himself, unable to really contribute to this decision. Val picked Abitrine first, brought her back, but alas, the spell broke, and Star was unable to be resurrected via wish. But now Abitrine would take over this world, leading it, guiding it, helping it get back on its feet, becoming basically the CEO of this land. And she's the only shareholder. She's the one in charge. So this week, what will the Longshots be up to the next 20 years? Who does what? Where goes where? And perhaps not the final closing of their lives, but certainly the last chapter in this campaign.
Woo! All right. I like that.
Thank you.
Went better than I thought.
I hope you had...
Underestimated.
I hope you had high standards that exceeded, or you expected nothing, and I just, oh, well, he showed up.
I expected it to be something like, well, we ended. No, you did
That's
absolutely what
I
I thought you'd do. You went above and beyond. Okay. So one thing I want to touch on that as time went on, a group of would-be heroes, people who try to look up for the greater good or maybe do it for the fame, each person has their own interpretation of the phrase, but a new turn of phrase was born over the next 20 years. A long shot is someone who aspires to be a little bit greater than they are. Some people use it as an insult. Some people use it to describe someone they greatly admire. But the term is thrown around a lot, almost synonymously with adventurer.
We've become the Pele of the Sword Coast.
Indeed.
Good one, Longshot.
In the city of Waterdeep, the growing war between the Zentarms and the Xanathar Guild is eventually snuffed out by Laeral Silverhand and the Mass Lords of Waterdeep. With things kind of calming down, Isaac and Irene were able to help Axiom kind of reform his mental brainwashing, shall we say. And in the coming 20 years has since taken over Horseshoe Mills. He now runs it sort of like a family business and has taken on a few people under his employ as well. Is it weird working for a Kenku? No, because he has a broad vocabulary. In the city of Neverwinter, about 10 years since the departure of the Longshots going their separate ways, the double-decker trailer mansion sits vacant. Shane Tailwind never wants to rent it out, but at the behest of Volo, every so often opens it up for tours for some extra scratch. Of course, always letting anyone he can ask to do so beforehand. Celise and Reyna eventually take over the throne as about another 10 years, so at the same time as you guys are doing the tours. Daggelt Neverember falls into a strange illness that no one is seemingly able to cure. While he sits comatose, it falls to them to run the kingdom. And who better to help them do that than, by the time of 20 years, their young dragon that was given to them by Theron as an egg. There is a bronze dragon that sits in the throne room beside the two. It can often be seen kind of walking the walls. The people of Neverwinter see it not only as a symbol of good luck, but in the fact that it is also a metallic dragon. They feel a bit more noble than they did before. Now, see, Dagult Neverember was a person who used to be Open Lord of Waterdeep before there was talk about him embezzling some funds and stashing it somewhere in the city, something the Longshots had also heard. So when he came to Neverwinter and helped them rebuild, people were skeptical. In a way, this dragon has sort of helped his legacy, kind of smooth over those, maybe he embezzled money there, but, he's been a good guy here. Kind of the general sentiment. So people approve of Reyna and Celise in the way that they're running things, but their particular policies is something you may have to figure out for yourselves. Over in Mintarn, we've got the production of larger scale airships. Now, these are not spelljammers by any means. Is it something they could have access to on the side? Sure, but as a whole, these are just to run between the continents of Faerun. Anyone else I need to touch on? Any places?
What happened to the Monopolies?
So Jeremy opens up his own sort of franchise. He learned to become a great chef thanks to his friend, Distinct, not Ratatouille.
Upright spending.
They're thinking about doing a sequel.
Wonderful. Whatever happened to the dagger that Meow threw into the water at Waterdeep? Was that Waterdeep? No, that wasn't Waterdeep. That was Mintarn. There was like a skeleton that grabbed it, and then I don't know if that was ever resolved. Was that resolved?
It was not. So I'm glad that you brought that up because I had forgotten about that for so long ago. So that was the hand of a one Captain Cortez. There was a whole storyline involving a long dead previous tyrant of Mintarn before the job was shifted to be a female-led role. It was the last male tyrant that they had, and he was all about piracy, all about hedonism. Just generally, it was like Tortuga down there. So it was he who had started to awaken. And then I think the Ezekiel stuff happened. But if I got that backward, then I accidentally dropped that. But Ezekiel doing stuff had me write that in particular out. Maybe you'll see Captain Cortez at some point.
Cool.
Oh, I almost forgot. Champ Gallahan. I have reached out to a few of our previous guest stars. Champ Gallahan achieved all of the group's victories, essentially single-handedly. At least, that's what my editor says. I had saved many damsels, including but not limited to each one of the previous party, single-handedly once again. He also, okay, you wanted me to read that in his voice, but it looks like he's also optioned Volo to pretty much do the Hallmark movie version of the Longshots, but like over a book series. So he kind of owns the rights to the tales subsequently. And says, and I quote, "And if you disagree, you can talk to my lawyer."
Nice.
But he did end up going on to impress his parents finally for once in his life, and did in fact receive the larger sum of the Gallahan fortune. With it, he expanded the Boobies franchise to all new places, so be on the lookout.
Did he celebrate with a nice bottle of champagne?
He did, in fact.
That was good.
With his friend Kip.
I am so happy that we have these jokes.
Wonderful.
All right. Anyone else you're thinking about? Okay. Then let me turn my attention to our initiative list.
Oh, before you start, what happened to Whisperer?
Oh, along with any aboleth, in particular, Whisperer reformed in about 5 years inside the plane of water. He's out there lurking, doing aboleth stuff. He is happy to be free of the gem and no longer cares whether or not someone finds Daggold Neverember's embezzled money, which was his original purpose.
I'm glad he's happy.
At least somebody is. Okay. Then Colt, you're first up with initiative at 29, I believe, unless somebody...
That's so unfair.
Well, let me just pour a sad one out for our favorite redhead right now. Okay. So...
There'll be a new favorite redhead soon, I'm telling you.
I've seen. So, Colt returns to Neverwinter grief-stricken and practically broken. He never goes back to the double wide trailer. Doesn't even pick up his stuff. Just goes right to the potion of prayer, drops all of his gold on the desk for Shane, and just takes a room on the highest part and shuts himself in. Vel would have to bring all of his stuff over because he kind of just refuses to leave the room. I think it gets around town pretty quickly what happened, so Shane gives him a pretty good rate and whatnot, but he still has a business to run. Colt, doesn't eat. He still bathes and eats, but he just doesn't leave the room. For someone who always woke up to watch sunrises, he sleeps in every day. He watches sunsets, doesn't talk much, leaves his hair unbraided, and just sits in the room looking outside all day. Few letters start coming in, word gets around, whatnot, doesn't answer any of them. I think Vel kinda takes charge of writing people back and whatnot. About 2.5 weeks afterwards, however, Elian comes knocking, because Elian wants the Azarak gem that Colt has been hanging on to. Colt refuses to hand it over. They have a big blowout, yelling at each other. I'm sure Vel witnesses it too, but if anyone else is sticking around, I'm sure they would see that too. Colt would say that, yelling at Elian, that he has lost so much and everyone else has gained so much more that he needs this gem. Doesn't say why, but doesn't take too many dust to connect that he wants to somehow use it to bring Star back. He just doesn't know how to yet. So he refuses to hand it over. However, later that day, Elian does steal it with Valhalla's help. Colt's outraged. He suits up, about to go back and get it, only to be stopped by Val, who tells him that he shouldn't do that and that she helped. And he kind of just collapses again because now he has lost the trust of his sister too. He's lost he spirals back down again and whatnot. And from then on, from that point, I would say Colt and Elian no longer have a relationship at all. They are both quite bitter towards each other, and they from that point forward, they don't ever talk or communicate. Colt has a very expensive room. Didn't have a whole lot of gold left. Celise, given the time they spent together, quietly asks Shane to send her the bill, so he kind of can just stay there to recover. Colt also quits writing completely. he throws out everything. All of his unfinished works, throws them out. Never writes again. Volo does dig them all out of the trash and publishes them as the unpublished works and tragic story of Colt Sebastian Taylor, with commentary and analysis by Voldo. Makes a good deal of money. I think Val might light part of his clothing on fire to make sure Colt gets his fair share and to pay for his room and whatnot. The tragic part is wildly inaccurate. But Colt never issues a correction. He gets more letters from a variety of people. Some people that Val knows, some people that don't know. Val does see letters from Harper and Rowan and Orlon, folks that they had traveled with in Candlekeep. Colt doesn't respond to any of them. Eventually, the Black Hooks arrive. Marcus arrives with some people. Colt takes them as visitors, talks to them, but doesn't leave the room, doesn't rejoin the Black Hooks, leaves them completely too. Marcus seems a little relieved by that because Colt was hard to manage even with Star, and without Star he feels like he would be completely unmanageable. Marcus leaves some money for Shane too, so Colt can sort of just stay and recover. About 2 months after Star's death, Reyna and Celise organize a memorial of sorts on the island where Alistair was buried. They were aware of Star's story and whatnot for the most part. Pretty good turnout. A lot of Black Hooks come. Shane, Belmont sisters, members of the White Sails Trading Company, Harper, Rowan, Leo, all the Candlekeep folks, Wraith, just throwing out some name drop in there. Colt does not attend. He does not leave his room at all. I imagine Vel does. I don't know. I'll leave it up to whether the Longshots attend. Everyone would have been contacted. Would Elliot not go?
I feel like he doesn't really know him that well to have gone. Plus, he's doing his own thing. Yeah. So yeah, no, he wouldn't have gone.
So I'm just curious. Would anyone else have gone?
I would imagine Bert is somewhere on the ocean and didn't get it in time.
Okay.
Yeah, I think Ametrine would show up for like an hour or so and then head back to Ravnica.
Makes sense. Vel would probably keep you updated of what his Colt's progress was, but he still doesn't leave anything. Colt does finally come out of his room after about 3 months when Val asks him to show Tez how to hold a sword. So, not training him, but how to properly defend himself. Kind of sparks of interest. He still doesn't leave a potion of the prayer. Uses the fighting pit in the off hours. Colt kind of smirks here and there and just moving along. Vel does give him a good talking to about not giving any bad traits to Tez and whatnot. And Colt kind of realizes that he is a bit of a bad influence, so he adjusts, and he actually does a pretty good job at teaching Tez on how to hold a sword. Hearing that Colt come out, Reyna and Celise offer Colt a job as captain of their guards, which he politely declines. Actually writes them back, declining, one of the few times he writes. No reason, but Vel tells them that he just can't do something that he considers himself had failed in the past. Around now, he does kind of walk around Neverwinter with Tez and Vel in tow, usually going to cake and pie shops, just eating, sweets and whatnot. He's still very, very, very sad. But at this point, he's probably okay with the point that Vel would probably, I've checked in with her about this, she would probably start popping over and visiting Ametrine on a more regular basis. But Colt still won't leave Neverwinter. He does visit Star's grave eventually, a year later. He wants to go alone, but Vel refuses to let him go alone. Does spend a few hours there by himself, sometimes talking, sometimes sobbing. She kind of gives him a lot of distance, can't quite hear what he's saying. When he comes back, Colt feels a little bit better. He tells Vel that he thinks he has a path out of this grief, but doesn't really explain why. He does start training some of the renegades, not Captain the Guard, but going in, fencing, sparring, sort of getting out of his routine. I think he even surprises Rue and Reynolds, one of their port stops in Neverwinter, greets them at the docks with Vel and Tez. He looks tired, but not as sickly as he did. 18 months later, he does finally visit Ametrine in her new world for a few days. Gets a full tour, all the bells and whistles. If at that point Elian is there, does not visit or ask about him whatsoever. Doesn't even talk about him. Probably has to stay. He doesn't. But he does tell Ametrine and Vel that he doesn't blame them or resent them or anything that they did, saying, quote, "They were your decisions, the right ones, and so are mine for whatever remaining time I have." Now at this point, Colt gets like a little conspiracy theory-ish. He starts trying to figure out like what went wrong, trying to fill in the gaps. Vel keeps him pretty good, like not going down a rabbit hole, basically. But he wants to go to Waterdeep and raid Ezekiel's old office for information and wants Vel to help. Vel declines and says she can't. She doesn't think this is a good choice for him, doesn't think the Sword Coast is good for Tez, and she decides to move to Ravnica. She asks Colt to come, but he declines. But he fully supports her decision, says he'll visit often, helps her move, goes back to Neverwinter by himself. A very tense 3, 4, 5, 6 days. Then on the 7th day, he just shows up unannounced with 2 pies. It seems to be his thing. He comes and visits every 7 to 12 days and brings a cake and a pie for Vel, Tez, and Ametrine. Any suggestion for him to perhaps reconcile with Elian is refused, saying that Elian is the one who needs to apologize to him, and refuses to do that. So now, I mean, I'm more than happy to pause if Vel wants to fill in her part and whatnot, or I can just keep going.
Just keep going,
Okay.
I'd say. I could... Yeah, I
Okay.
don't think it's necessary.
Okay. So Colt does come every 7 to 12 days. Unannounced, doesn't get no rhyme or reason, always comes with a pie. Tells Tez a bunch of different stories, all age appropriate. He's actually very good at not being a bad influence. Tries to tell as many stories to embarrass Vel as possible. Also, always visits Ametrine when he comes. Ametrine and Vel, I think, would see he feel like he's doing better, but still pretty sad and whatnot. Eventually, though, he does move to Waterdeep and whatnot. And for the first few weeks, it's kind of like John Wick, where the Black Hooks are asking, "Hey, you working again, Colt?" And he politely says, "No, I'm just want to come back to a bigger city." Hangs out in the Yawning Portal and consults adventurers going down there and hanging out. Basically, is a consultant, telling them what they should do, what they need, etc., whatnot. A time that Rue and Reynolds will visit, they will notice that he has an assistant that follows him around all the time. Kind of looks like Maya Hawke from Stranger Things, and always holding a book. Keeps calling him Mr. Taylor or Sir. Doesn't actually call him Colt. Very much keeping him organized. Kind of pesters him more than anything else. But I'll post pictures later. But seemingly keeping him organized. No sense of even flirting between them, or they're probably not banging, so to speak. Actually, she does actually work for him. Still comes every week. Every 7 to 12 days. Visit's still kind of sad. Still a lot of grief in him, but he's sort of keeping himself busy. Pops over to Mintarn a few times. One time when Rue and Reynolds are there, he looks a little flustered and says, "Oh, I gotta go." Might be banging Blythe, hard to say. Any suggestion for anyone to visit, like Vel to visit Waterdeep, he says no, because Waterdeep's still very dangerous. He does go to Boulder's Gate, where Volo publishes Before the Longshots, the early days of Colt Sebastian Taylor, with Candlekeep folk there with a big book signing, including an elf that has a hard time deciding which book to sign, so it takes him 30 minutes to sign a book between books. And then Vel does get invited to come there, to sign books and whatnot, visit the old Rusty Sword. Just before the 3rd anniversary of Star's death, Colt gives Vel a bunch of letters that he asks to give to people, including Elliot. That one's unsealed because he figured Vel would want to read it to make sure he wasn't like being a dick. So, Alien's
I was gonna say, Vel does not read it. She doesn't. She's not that controlling.
Okay, well, he hers is sealed. Alien's is not, because they're like, well, you might want to read just in case you think I'm still raw. So, Alien's letter says, Alien, I hope this letter finds you and Matthew in good health and high spirits. The last time we spoke, I said a lot of things. I said a lot of hurtful things. In my grief, I was selfish and did not fully appreciate, understand, or even want to feel anything anyone else was feeling. It was wrong of me, and I put you in a position I should not have. Please accept this letter and accompanying pie as my apology.
Not the fucking pie.
At this point, their pies are for Bismuth. Bismuth has opened a pie shop in Waterdeep. Regardless, if you can accept it or me, you will always be my brother, and I will always be there if you need me. I'm hoping that I can see you again and hear everything you've been up to. Regards, Colt. Amatrine's letter says, Amatrine, I hope this letter finds you in good health and high spirits. We are a long way from fighting a peppermint dragon, aren't we? Every time I come to your world, I'm impressed with what you have done here. There is no one else I can think of who could have done this. I know Star would have been very proud of you. I wish she could have seen this. I think she would have found the peace she searched for all of these years. Maybe I think I don't deserve that peace just yet, but maybe one day I will. I'm hopeful. I look forward to hearing what you've been working on and seeing you soon. With love in my song, Colt. Captain Reynolds, I hope this letter finds you in good health and high spirits. It is always a nice surprise to see you when you come to Waterdeep and I can catch up with you and your daughter. I know I've never directly said this, but you are a good father. And it shows with Rue. It's nice seeing you two together. Please swing by the Onion Portal the next time you're in town so I can buy you dinner. Regards, Colt. Rue, I hope this letter finds you in good health and high spirits. Trading the life of a black hook for that of a high seas, I imagine, is somewhat of a lateral movement, but probably an improvement. I hope it is an improvement. From what I hear, the black hooks are a bit more intense than they used to be. I, for one, am glad to be done with them. I think at this point, Star would have been done with them also. She may even want to sail the seas, although I think perhaps it would have been more in the area of piracy. We both know how she was. She was very fond of you, from what I've read in her journals. Something that Rue was unaware that she kept. She definitely saw you as becoming a great thief. I've seen you become a great person. I still miss her so deeply as we get to the 3rd year of her being gone. And I wonder if any year will hurt less. But as she once said, there's no sense of wondering if you don't try. I hope our paths cross soon. And finally, Vel's letter. Sister, from time to time you might question things. Leaving Candlekeep, joining the Black Hooks, using Wish first on Amatrine, moving Tez to here. Never think I believe you have abandoned me or left me behind. I made my choices and so did you. None of those choices ever left me with a sense of resentment or an ounce of disappointment. I hope my choices have done the same. I'm beyond proud of who you've become after all these years, and let's face it, you're right. I am a terrible influence. But I'm trying to get better. And maybe one day I'll be a good influence, like you are for Tez and like you were for me. I love you, Valhalla Tate Taylor. I know you'll always come for me, no matter the distance. With love, Colt. Before Colt leaves, Colt asks also Vel if, like, maybe a week or two after the 3rd anniversary of everything, that she could get everyone together for a big dinner, because he kind of misses seeing everyone. So, that he would go and do his stuff and whatnot, but he would probably come back in 2 or 3 weeks after the 3rd anniversary and see if Vel was able to get everyone together for a big dinner. So, this part depends on if you would actually come.
Val certainly tries to get everyone together.
Thinking about it.
I know. I thought I'll put you on the spot here.
Okay, so first of all, I feel like with that letter, from Colt, Ellen would... And pie. I'll give the pie to... He wouldn't... Well, depending on what year it was, he might try it. But, he would probably, I feel, write a letter back to Colt. Sort of just saying how he appreciates that Colt is, from what he sees in the letter, Colt is kind of like reflecting within himself, and kind of thinking about things. So he's going to say how he's happy about that, and that he hopes that Colt can get better. He hopes he feels better. Considering how he was in such a bad place before. And he would say, kind of like what we were talking about before, how he doesn't want to... He thinks it would be healthier for Colt and Elion, for himself, to stay apart. It would be the healthier decision for both of them. So he would set a boundary of, like, I don't think we should, like, continue, to talk or anything like that, but if we come across each other's paths or something like that, like, he would have no problem being civil with him, like, he would be friendly, stuff like that. But the whole situation was just very sad, and he's trying to work on himself a lot right now, so he doesn't really want... He wants his own time.
Okay. So you wouldn't attend the big dinner?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I think he would send his, like, regards with Vel, but he would definitely stay, because he's very, like, when I read mine, you'll understand. He's
Sure.
He's healing. He's doing his thing.
Okay. Reynolds, Rue?
Bert has no problem with Colt. He'd show up.
Yeah, Rue would show up.
I love how yours is so simple.
Okay, so, this is...
Sorry, when was this happening?
This is about 2 weeks after the 3rd anniversary of the Scion battle.
Okay. And where?
Vel's place.
Okay, yeah, I'm trained to come.
Okay. Question to Reynolds and Rue. In the 2 weeks before this party, would you have visited Mintarn, Waterdeep, Neverwinter, or Baldur's Gate? Is that something you hit on a regular basis, or if you don't, it's
Remind
fine.
me exactly how far out this is from
A little after 3 years.
so it's been 3 years since we beat the BBEG.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
I feel like that would
I
be
would
on
say
our pretty
yeah.
regular trade route.
Yeah, 100%.
At least one of them, yeah.
Okay.
Especially now that our ship can fly.
I would say
True.
it's 3 weeks between the letter and this date. What ports do you visit, if any?
All of them?
Yeah, honestly, in a 3-week time period, we're hustling.
Okay.
Yeah, we're making bank.
Okay. You three, specifically in Mintarn, this is a bit of a gossip that you guys bring. There was a ship crashed into a tavern and exploded, destroying it. The same tavern where the Dark Timeline battle took place. But here, it was a Black Hook HQ, and some ship ran out of control, hit it, blew up, everyone got killed, people on the ship were unnamed, and it was, I think, Rue, you do some of them. You didn't really, they're kind of assholes at this point. A lot of the Black Hooks are assholes, especially the higher ranking ones, so you weren't that sad, but kind of weird.
Yeah, she would have cut all of her ties with the Black Hooks
Okay,
by this point.
but certainly notable. In Boulder's Gate, the Rusty Sword, which was the Black Hook's hangout, had a fire. No one reported killed, but you didn't really see any Black Hooks hanging about there. Then in Neverwinter, there was no sign of any Black Hook activity. It looked like they had left. And as was the some Icewind Dale Black Hooks reported that there was some old big fight with a gang. You begin to think maybe the Xandathars have made a move, or going after high-ranking Black Hooks, so you kind of bring that to Colt, and he doesn't really give a shit what's going on with them as either. He's like, all right, I'll keep an eye out, but whatever. When you visited Waterdeep before you visited there, you couldn't track down Marcus. Not that you wanted to, but like no one really knew where he was at the moment. So they thought he was possibly hiding. At the big get together, Colt respects Elian's decision, tells Vel that he appreciated the letter back and whatnot. And if there's any pie requests from Waterdeep, he would bring an extra one. Everyone does meet Colt's assistant. Her name is Uma, vaguely half-elven, very skittish, always holding a book, like very pesky with Colt and whatnot, but helps him keep him very much organized. Has a lot of bi-panic energy in her and whatnot. Very blushing all the time and like, oh, okay. What the... Colt does bring a big portrait for folks. Its title is called The Longshots and features them, the Belmont sisters, Matthew, Elian, everyone they've come across over the years. No Star, though. Star's not in that painting. Colt is also not in that painting. Until you realize Colt Sebastian Taylor has been painted into this big old painting and whatnot. Colt doesn't say whether he did that on purpose or not. But Uma kind of gives up that he thought it would be funny, and so he decided to put that in there. So I guess you see a little bit of his humor come back, but he kind of gives it like, whoever wants this, but this is like, something, for those who don't hang out in Waterdeep, here's something fun to remember everything by. Big dinner. Uma kind of sticks close to Colt the entire time, has him kind of check a notebook and whatnot in terms of things that they have to take care of. Looks like he's doing a lot of stuff in Waterdeep. Good time. They pop back. About a week after Colt gets back, Marcus is dead. Passed away in his sleep, according to the news. Marcus at this point had taken over the Yasena estate for the last 3 years. Ezekiel had left Marcus in charge when he went to the Astral Sea, and since he never came back, Marcus was kind of in charge of the estate, produced a will that apparently Ezekiel signed, and so he inherited the Yasena estate. With Marcus dead, another will popped up, dated about 4 years ago, widely out of date, that named Colt and Star as his executors. So Colt kind of takes over the Yasena estate and renames it the Eliza Tate Estate, or the ETE for short. Black Hooks dissolve. Word has it, all the high commanders left. Some died. Some were kind of upset about Bintarn blowing up. But everyone above a certain rank, you just don't see anymore. Leaving a lot of lower rank folks very nervous that the Xanathars are going to get them. Xanathars put a lot of statement out like, no, we didn't do this. Colt reluctantly gathers up these folks and forms the Rovan Rangers, although he doesn't really say what the word Rovan means. Hang out at the Yawning Portal. If a rich noble gets stuck in the Yawning Portal, Rovan Rangers go down, get them out at a very good fee. This is after the third year. Colt moves Statue Thane from Neverwinter down to Waterdeep, and Statue Thane and Volo team up and go around Waterdeep reviewing theaters and restaurants, with Volo pushing Thane on a cart. Statue Thane on a cart. Statue Thane insists he can walk, but refuses to do so, making Volo push him around Waterdeep as they go, reviewing stuff. And then puts the statues, sits in the front yard of the Eliza Tate estate at night. Whenever Colt comes, he drops off newspapers for Vel. There's nothing written. He writes nothing. Occasionally he makes the paper. A crisis, showing up, being in the middle of something, negotiating, whatnot, but kind of keeps it low key, out of the news. One story has a very vivid description of Colt fighting behind the Yawning Portal with his assistant, being very handy with a pair of knives. Although looking at her, you're like, okay, wouldn't see that. And they just kind of hang out all the time and consult and whatnot, and becomes a respectable member of Waterdeep for the next 5 to 15 years and whatnot. Anyone who does visit Colt in his office will see a bunch of souvenirs. He actually doesn't carry around his father's sword anymore. He has that mounted. He carries a different rapier now, and his assistant usually has a rapier also, although no one ever sees her actually draw it. There is, however, one big painting in his office. It's an old one. It's him and Star dressed in their royal uniforms, and the title says Partners. Underneath, the little plaque says Captain Crimson, Colt Sebastian Taylor. The 7th Star, Princess Starese Rovan Emil. So that's where Colt got the Rovan Rangers. And he walks around Waterdeep, sometimes with a security detail, but sometimes not. He's a little more jokey, a little more smirky, doesn't dress as outrageously as he used to. And by 1520, you would think that perhaps he's finally gotten over what had happened all those years ago. There you go.
All right. I will say that I have a special epilogue to share with you when I get it submitted to me. I ran it by somebody earlier today, and I'm waiting on getting the text. They were going to bring it themselves, but they are currently indisposed, so they will be giving me the text version to narrate. However, moving on in initiative order, we got Rue.
I hope you all enjoyed that. I worked really hard on that over the weekend.
It was great.
It's amazing.
I'm still waiting on an answer back about something. Can I go after the next person?
Sure. Then let me take a look at initiative then. So it was 29 to 23. Alien, I've got you at a 6, and I've got Amatrine at a 6.
I was gonna say, I have a 6, so that's I thought I was going last, so.
I rolled a 14.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yours is with advantage, and we're taking the 14, right?
I didn't roll a second time. I'm an idiot. Hopefully.
I mean, either way, I think you're gonna be above.
17?
Okay. So then we'll flip to Bert. Back to Rue, but I need you guys to figure out who's going to go on the 6s between Amatrine or Alien. And then Vel with a 2.
Do you want to...
I got a
Alien,
4.
do you want to go?
I got a 4 + 2.
You go ahead.
Okay.
All right.
I have a -1.
And then
Okay. I'll go first.
Bert to Rue to Elian to Ametrine to Vel.
Is that my cue?
That's your cue, sir.
Okay, cool. I totally did a lot of preparing on this.
Same.
Burt Reynolds got out to a whole bunch of shenanigans and hootenannies after we defeated Scion. Not really, nothing too crazy. He decided he was going to go back and establish some trade routes now that he has an upgraded ship and can fly through the air and the space-time continuum, I assume. So he's decided to build that out, and I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Rue, but Rue decided to tag along for at least portions of that. Is that a yes or a no?
Yeah, honestly, the entire time they kind of join forces. Therapy helps, I feel like.
Batman and Robin style. So we established a bunch of trade routes, and we are hustling. And outside of that, outside of just becoming the next Mr. And Miss Monopoly, we are helping out Captain Sean Connery kind of get his foot off the ground with his little installation, if you will, away from piratry into an honest life. And frankly, Buck, I Rue, if you want to comment on this, I would personally see what you would do with that, Buck, if you have anything interesting that Captain Connery would be up to, because that was kind of your guy. Outside of that, I mean, Rue, do you want to be the one to discuss the Captain Connery debacle?
Yeah, so there was a bit of a situation. What would you say, like roughly a year after we all parted ways, we make our reality TV debut?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we go on what the equivalent of Mari would be, and it is revealed that Captain Burt Reynolds is in fact not the
Oh no!
Womp.
Oh my goodness!
Approximately 2 weeks later, though, a follow-up episode is aired where
I would like to say on the reveal, Bert is not doing backflips off of the couch. He is actually very sad.
Yeah, like he's sad.
One of the sad ones.
And then a couple weeks later, Rue's father is revealed as Sean Connery.
Whoa!
Whoa.
I thought
Rue is devastated, though, because it's revealed that Sean is her father and not her mother.
Lost a mother to gain a father.
So
Wow.
the three of them, so we're all kind of in business together anyways, so we have weekly Mari mandated family therapy to help us establish our new dynamic.
Is it led by Dr. Phil?
No, it's led by Pef Jost.
Yes, and that
Okay,
would have
now,
been the official.
Now Bert has to be the mother.
Yes, I don't know, is there like a weird dynamic between you two going on?
There's no way the epitome of manliness and just absolute sex icon that is Bertram Reynolds is going to be the mother. I'm sorry.
There would have been an awkward moment where they both were standing outside of Rue's door, both going to like go to say goodnight, and they're just constantly like bumping into each other, like, "Oh, excuse me, no, excuse me," and
the clothes
that's
fall off.
about.
All of a sudden, there's just this really weird rivalry that's just like bubbling underneath their new relationship.
Yeah, there's like definitely some masculinity rivalry. Who's the most fatherly father, the adoptive or the bio dad? Like it's uncomfortable for everybody.
It's a war of dad jokes, I would say.
Oh God, the world was not prepared.
That's the best kind, honestly.
But other than that, I would say overall, he would change his ways, not being a pirate, first and foremost. Also, now that I'm thinking about it, that quest, he had rolled up and completely taken treasure out of the comedic Hydra's home and had told the Hydra that another ship that they were going to pirate had taken it and was quite convincing, so the Hydra attacked them. Really, the Hydra was just a victim in all of this.
Yeah, really.
Just really rubbing
Agree.
salt in
I
that
agree.
wound.
I did nothing. Just saying, just putting it out there. I did absolutely nothing. Maybe actually that doesn't make me better. That makes me actually worse.
That makes you
stood-
Bring it
worse.
up
I
now.
stood by and did
Yeah.
nothing. Oh God, you're right.
I bring it up
Jesus.
now because he would talk about that in family therapy and be like, I was really wrong for that. But overall, yeah, he changes his ways and just goes full on regular merchant, no piracy.
He wants to set a good example for me.
Of course. Court mandated.
Hmm
He's
Wait,
got a
wait.
parole officer
He doesn't get
sees
his
one every couple
alimony
months.
unless he. unless he
Are you
does that.
paying him child support?
Listen, it's complicated, okay?
There's a
I make
weird
a lot.
contract.
I make a lot more money than him now. He got used to a certain lifestyle, okay?
I think
Kind of
Colt,
like the Black Pearl.
I think Colt heard about this, but he still considers Bertram to be Rue's father in terms of.
And Rue does
Yeah.
too, honestly.
But yeah, that's all I've got to add. Were you guys,
That's all I came up with on the spot. I'm sorry. I'm the well.
that's
described.
great.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, I have a little bit to go on now.
Let's do it.
So, roughly around that 3-month time period when Colt finally exits his room, at this point, Rue would have been gone for like over 2 months. He wouldn't have heard from her, and she just kind of disappeared in the middle of the night. I don't think her and Bert would have left together. They would have met up like very, very soon after, though, but she still had to leave with like shrouded in mystery and rudeness. So after Colt gets back to his room, he sees a package sitting on his bed with a piece of candy on top of it. He would have absolutely no idea how it got there. He would obviously know it was from Rue, but she had been gone. He had not seen her for a very, very long time. Colt, do you want to react at all to that?
This is 3 months later.
Yes, it would have been the very first time that you exited your room.
I think Colt's hair is unbraided, just kind of a mess. Kind of just go like, doesn't like has no patience to deal with this bullshittery, and just kind of walk in and go, "What the hell is this?"
So when he picks up the package, you'll see that it is actually addressed to Star.
Ooh, well, that'll hit him hard. Okay.
Yeah. And if he were to open it up, he would find probably 100-page notebook that he had recognized her from what he thought was drawing in all the time. In fact, he had stolen it at one point and made sure that she was just drawing in it. But if he opened it up, he would have found a letter addressed to Star and then a following ridiculous amount of pages and notes on how to be essentially the perfect thief and the perfect epitome of what the Black Hooks used to be. And he'll recognize that these are actually all, even though his name isn't necessarily in it a whole lot, it is all about him and everything that Rue learned from him. Essentially like a love letter to his thievery and how Rue learned so much and wants to be just like him when he grows up. And that would have been what she actually sent to Star at the end of their time together.
Mm-hmm. I think at that time, Colt would probably spend a few days reading it over and over again, and of everything he throws away, he definitely keeps that. And when he moves into the Eliza Tate estate and takes over Ezekiel's desk, that's something he keeps in the top drawer. And every once in a while, over the years, the folds are a little more folded, the paper's a little softer. He'll flip through it for his own sort of reminiscing.
Oh, and something important that would also be on that initial like first page letter, it would be something along the lines of like, I finally completed my mission. I know you weren't here to see it, Star, but I did it. and Colt will notice that something is missing from his room.
Okay. Do you want me to say that?
Yeah, you can.
Colt has a silver letter opener that Star had taken from a previous job they had done, and shortly before going to Candlekeep, she gave it to him for sort of, a token, and it's, you could kill someone with it, but, he kind of just kept it in an inside pocket, and we realized that son of a bitch took that from me.
And I don't think the two of them would ever acknowledge it necessarily. It would just be kind of an unspoken thing between them. But every single time that Rue comes to visit and sees Colt, she will leave a piece of candy somewhere, like on his person or in his room. She won't take anything, but it's just to fuck with him and make him think that she did.
Does she ever return it?
I'm getting there.
Okay.
So, when he sends the big dinner invite, instead of sending her RSVP, he's just going to receive a package with the silver letter opener in it from her.
Okay.
And then she'll show up to the dinner.
Gotcha.
That's about it.
Okay.
All right. Heartwarming indeed. Alien?
Are you guys ready?
We're ready.
I'm ready.
So ready.
Just so you know, I've been running the dishwasher, and we have like a drain issue that I gotta keep
I'm going
watching.
to check
So
on it right now.
when I'm standing up, I can still hear you from both rooms, but I'm checking my drain.
Fair enough, honestly, to be honest. Okay, hang on, I gotta pull it up. I already pulled it up, I gotta get it. Alright.
We're doing almost good at my hour estimate. We're pretty close.
Okay,
All right, get your drink on.
All right.
this is water. We're watering because my throat gets really dry when I read out loud, so. Because I get nervous. Oh my god. Okay. Okay. Are you guys ready?
Yep.
This is a lot
Ready.
more of like a story type thing. Like I'm just gonna read what I wrote. 'cause
That's
I
okay.
spent- It's not gonna be as like theatrical as
Consider this like grade school show and tell.
this
One
is
person
grade
brought
school
their
show and
cat.
tell.
One person brought their favorite toy. There's no
Yeah.
wrong answers.
There you go. There you go. Fair enough. Okay. Hang on, let me get my music on. I gotta listen. I gotta be in the moment. If I can find it.
While she's doing
Sorry.
that, okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm taking the longest time. No, go ahead.
I was going to say, Jared, I will add that Colt would check in on Isaac in Waterdeep once a month.
Oh, that's nice.
And assist with
That's
any
nice.
permits-related things needed. If he had trouble selling his wares, he would try to smooth that over. And also probably pop up to Neverwinter, since he can portal now, and have lunch with Celise once a month-ish.
Very nice.
Makes his rounds.
I'm gonna have to mark that down for Isaac. You ready?
You ready?
Mhm.
We'll go.
Yes. Okay. So, as Elion uttered the chilling words kill, a mere moment elapsed before Sion crumbled into ethereal dust, vanishing before his very eyes.
Oh.
It was over, and Sion was gone. A rush of conflicting emotions washed over Elion, causing his vision to blur and his ears to ring. The gravity of what he had just done weighed heavily on him. Yes, he had taken lives before, but this was different. It was so swift and so effortless, and the scariest part was that it had been his instinctual response. He had been lost, unsure of what to do before this moment, fueled by rage upon witnessing Ametrine's disappearance before him. It was an emotional... In that emotional turmoil, he impulsively resorted to the most primal of action, killing. As he stood there grappling with the aftermath, his mind was flooded with haunting thoughts. What have you done? This is all you're good for. You're nothing but a killer. In an attempt to find some clarity and inner peace, Elion closed his eyes and focused on his breathing. In and out. In and out. Amidst the turmoil, a surprising realization emerged. Ametrine was back, seemingly materialized before his eyes. The following events became a blur, and in his memory as time passed. After 2.5 weeks, and after a lot of recuperation, rest, and thinking, Elion would have gathered everyone around to announce his leave. He explained that even though he was leaving, he was very happy to have known everyone, but that now he was going to truly make time to heal, discover, and find some peace. He would be leaving in the early morning with Matthew and Eliza, but before he departed, he sought one final thing, the crystal containing Asarak, a remnant of his troubled past. Colt, who seemed to look so broken, was the one who held such an item. Elion was never good with emotion, especially when it came to Colt, so he had no idea how to comfort him. He figured he would leave this job to Vel. How could he be there for Colt if he couldn't even be there for himself? Elion was in no emotional state to help Colt, but this didn't change the fact that Elion needed the crystal to fix one of his worst mistakes. At first, he asked politely and quietly, not wanting to hurt Colt in any way. Colt was soft-spoken, saying no, how he could keep it safe and never release him. But that wasn't the problem. Elion needed it so that he could finally sever himself from Asarak. He needed to find his peace. He took a different approach, explaining why he needed it. He even begged a little bit before Colt got angry with him and retaliated, saying how he lost everything. Meanwhile, Elion had gained a mother and Matthew, and he was in no position to demand anything. Elion's vision blurred and his chest tightened. Not only did he lose everything, including his mother twice, his father 3 separate times, Matthew once, along with his freedom, his sanity, and his life, and Colt had the gall to say he didn't lose anything. Elion may have finally gained a mother and a companion that would hopefully stick by him, but he would never deliberately deny someone peace just because he couldn't have it. He deserved to gain back his life, and he deserved to live a life. The universe never stopped demanding from him when he lost everything, so why was it so hard for Colt to hand over something that would help him? Before he realized, he was screaming all of those thoughts out loud at Colt, with tears flooding down his cheeks. He didn't regret it. It was the truth. Colt simply replied with, "And look what you have now. You have peace. I'm not done with it. When I am, I'll let you know." That wasn't fair. What could Colt possibly want with it? Nothing. There's nothing that could help him with it. As Colt left the room with those final words, Elion's vision began to blur, and his heart rate quickened. A pain was forming in his chest, and he couldn't understand it. He left the room searching for Vel, feeling betrayed and hurt by Colt's lack of empathy. He couldn't wait for Colt to decide when he could find peace. He had to take matters into his own hands. The next morning, Elion left tired from the night before, but his pockets were a bit heavier. He was frustrated and didn't understand why such events had occurred. Could things ever go back to the way they were before? He didn't want to think about it right now. They made their way and traveled to the 10th district of Ravnica. For the next year, Elion spent his time with Eliza and Matthew, as well as 35-something members of Clan Tam. When they had arrived earlier in the year, not many of the members seemed to recognize Eliza, and there were a few, however, including Silver, who welcomed her back with open arms. And she was soon reinducted into the clan. The ceremony was beautiful, and for a brief moment, Elion forgot about all of his troubles. Elion had made new friendships, especially with Cassius, otherwise known as Silver, and his son Xander, who he saw almost daily. Cassius made a point to help teach Elion, along with Eliza. He spent his time learning and helping build new structures, learning the ways of artifice and making magical items, how to create magical armors, steel defenders, walking cannons, and much more. It was amazing that he was able to learn so much, and that he was also able to spend some time reading any odd book he found about history. Although he would often read alone, Eliza spent some of her time reading with him, and explaining more about elves and magic as a whole. Although things started to look up, he hadn't run into trouble for a whole year. Spending so little time fighting for his life was interesting, but he certainly wasn't complaining. Elion became restless, and his mind would swirl, constantly aware and afraid that something was bound to happen because so much time had passed. The calm before the storm, if you will. He would spend many days and nights pacing back and forth, and when he wasn't with others or studying with Cassius, many nights had been spent overthinking. His heart squeezed in his chest and tears fell down his cheeks. Although there was no particular danger in sight. And maybe that was the problem. Something had to be coming. Something had to be watching him, and something had to be waiting for the right moment to strike. But they never did. And nothing ever happened. It was strange. Elion never wanted to be an adventurer. He was a victim of circumstance, was all. But now, when he spent most nights breathing radically, and his heart felt like it would leap out of his chest, Matthew, Eliza, and sometimes Cassius would be there to comfort him, to put up with his fits and remind him that everything would be okay. That he was loved, that he and his loved ones were safe, and that he didn't need to go on some big adventure the next morning. It was okay. They never seemed to mind taking care of him, and this brought Elion comfort. These people truly loved him, and if that's what you could call it, maybe the next step would be to learn to accept that. 3 years have passed since Elion has been with Clan Tam. A few things have changed. First, after some urging from Matthew and Eliza and Cassius, he started sleeping again. At first, he would simply lay in bed pretending in hopes he wouldn't actually have to sleep, but Matthew caught on fast, and after a few talks, Elion agreed to genuinely try. Time would pass, and Elion would eventually fall asleep. Some nights he would wake up screaming, and some nights he would wake up crying, but every single time, someone was there to comfort him and make sure he was okay. Elion hated the idea of sleeping, dreaming to be precise. He didn't understand why he needed to sleep, especially since he's never slept a full 8 hours in his life, and his body genuinely didn't need to. Cassius was right, though. If he eventually wanted to get rid of Astarak's power within him, he would need to get used to sleeping again, because his body would need it without the necrotic energy keeping him awake. It was better to tackle the issue now than later. Once again, the people he loved were there for him through his troubles. The second thing that's changed was Elion slowly came to terms with the fact that people do love him. He's worthy of love, and even though the people around him might not always be there physically, they still love him, and he's come to accept that he loves them too. Although sometimes it's hard, logically he knows these things, but some days his body refuses to believe it. When these days roll around, his loved ones have no problem helping him realize that their love is still there. Amatrine is an exceptional example of this. Even though she's sometimes thousands of miles away, or even on different planes, she always makes an effort to reach out and check up on him. When Vel lived far and was traveling with Colt for the past 2 years, they would frequently message about each other's lives and give each other updates. This no longer needed to happen after Vel showed up at the beginning of the 3rd year, wanting to follow the path of Clan Tam. At first it was a bit odd, but soon enough Vel and Elion became much closer. They got to know each other in simple ways, not that they never could before, like what's your favorite color, what's your favorite food, and whatnot. They would study together and be there for each other whenever it was needed. Although they didn't know how to properly be siblings, or rather friends to each other, they slowly learned and grew together. The third thing that changed was Elion began to eat again. He hadn't done so in years because of the necrotic energy around the same time that he no longer needed to sleep at night. The hardest part wasn't exactly eating itself, but remembering to eat. Matthew and Vel would often be the ones to remind him, and it soon became a chore, especially since Elion hadn't known how to cook. Vel picked up on this and would often ask Elion to taste test whatever she had made, and he eventually grew curious and offered to help. They began to cook and bake together often, and everyone would enjoy the meals that they prepared. Eating became less of a chore and more of something that Elion was looking forward to. The fourth thing that changed was Elion was finally ready to break his pact. After countless sleepless nights, turning into 8-hour long rests, cooking became a regular part of his schedule, and his family being there for him, he was ready. After letting his family know, he and Vel went out into the forest and broke the crystal. The events of that night would forever stay between those who were there, but one thing is for sure. Astarak would never bother Elion or his loved ones ever again. 4 years have passed since Elion has been with Clan Tam, and although he was technically able to officially let into the clan by his first year, he didn't feel ready. It wasn't until today that he and Valhalla are now ready to fully be welcomed in. A few hours before the ceremony, Elion stands in front of a mirror with a pair of scissors. It isn't long before all of the hair on his head is gone. A few months ago, Elion had broken his pact with Astarak. He was incredibly thankful for those around him that encouraged him to sleep and eat beforehand, as it made the process of losing his necrotic abilities much easier, although it was still difficult. He felt much more alive, probably because he literally was. He decided that before the ceremony, he would be where he was now, in the process of starting completely new. It was believed in Elven culture that the longer your hair was and the more well-maintained it meant, the better. There was also a famous phrase he read about that hair holds memories. This was the time to start new ones and to release himself fully from this and symbolically from those painful ones of his past. With a few final snips, a mountain of deep black hair on the floor, he finally stepped away, allowing those memories to be swept away with the wind. So yes, Elion was bald. That is canonical.
Nice.
A few hours later, as Elion and Vel stepped into the lake, the ceremony began. The ceremony he got to watch so many years ago, and now one he could be a part of. During his time with Clan Tam, he created a magical artifact that would be his magical armor. This particular item was a prosthetic eye that could expand into a brilliant set of armor. They stood in the lake. Eliza and Cassius placed helmets upon their heads, and they were officially part of Clan Tam. As the 5th year rolled around, Ellen and Vel made the journey to Ravnica. They parted ways for a brief moment as Vel settled in with Tez. Ellen and Matthew had found their own place. It was a couple months into the middle of the 5th year that the two made their way to Mintarn. Here, a different ceremony would take place, ending with 2 rings and 2 names carved into a brick wall.
Oh.
The next 5 years were spent in Ravnica. Although Elian would still think about the past, it happened less and less. Those dreams he would wake up to 5 years ago turned into nothing more than memories, and that's all they were, memories. He decided that he would live here in the moment. He spent those 5 years studying, getting as much knowledge about any type of history that he could get his hands on. There was always something new to learn and something new to discover. At the beginning of the 10th year, Elian decided he wanted to do much more than just learn. He wanted to share this information with others. He decided he would apply for a job at the academy. Matthew had already been working there as a professor teaching about magical creatures, so he figured it was time to join him. Now, in his 40s, at the beginning of the 20th year, Elian's hair has grown back to hip length. It's healthy, well-maintained, full of life, and full of memories. No braids or decorations are to be seen, and his hair is truly his. His eyes, green and blue respectively, are full of life, even his one eye, a prosthetic he made over 10 years ago. He's once again taken pride in his appearance, dressing to the role as a history professor. Matthew, however, enjoys dressing down. Some things never change. Elian doesn't miss his days adventuring. In fact, he's extremely glad that they're over. It didn't matter how powerful he was. It didn't matter how many spells he could cast. All his power was pain. All they ever did was hurt him and others. So now he spent his time helping people and teaching them, sharing his passion. Also, he enjoys the mundane life. He enjoys the simplicity, and he enjoys waking up in the morning after having given his mind a long rest from the day before. He enjoys brewing tea and making breakfast for himself and Matthew. He enjoys getting dressed and going to work to talk about something he's passionate about all day. He had a purpose now, and he had a love and a want to keep living his life. He loves those around him, and they love him. They loved him at his absolute worst and helped him get through it. He had stopped bullying Ametrine's best friend most days, that is. Some days it's hard. Some days he struggles with his self-image or understanding that people truly love him. He learned that these thoughts and feelings simply don't disappear forever, and he still wakes up crying some nights. But it happens less and less, maybe once or twice every few months. But every time someone would be there for him, as well as he's realized the importance of vocalizing his thoughts and feelings in those moments of doubt, making a genuine effort to communicate. Life was genuinely good. Hell, he didn't even think he'd be alive for 18 years, let alone 40. And as the years went by, Elian realized that he found something he never would. Happiness. And that's it.
Very nice.
That's
It was
so sweet.
amazing.
Love it.
Thank you.
Very well. Okay.
The delivery was off, but the message was there.
The message was there, and it was told from a different point of view, which is
that's what I was talking about with, like, it's more like story kind of based.
Okay. So then we move on to Ametrine.
All right, mine's gonna be way less exciting.
I love yours.
Oh. Okay, have fun. Yeah. Sorry about that. Alright. So, after a month, Ametrine didn't move to Ravnica right away. Instead, she remained with the Longshots until they got settled, made sure everyone was comfortable. She offered Captain Burt Reynolds his pick of trade routes between Faerun and Ravnica, which he happily accepted. Ametrine was heartbroken upon hearing of the falling out between Elian and Colt, but while she wanted to keep her friends together, after a brief chat with Elian the morning he left, she understood why he needed to go on his own journey to find some peace. She also offered the position of captain of her guard to Colt, though he politely declined. The offer continues to remain open. She tried to... One second, I'm sorry.
Oh, Mom, try
This
to
is
tell the story.
perfect. I can go. Ow! Oh. Banged my knee on the wall.
Sorry, people are preparing to leave in my house, and they're talking very loudly.
God, I'm trying to do fancy stuff, Mom.
Leave me alone. I'm trying to do my podcast. um, though he politely declined, she tried to help Colt through his grief and depression, but she quickly realized how dangerous it was for her to be away from Ravnica for too long. In the meanwhile, however, she figured the guilds were still recovering from the planet's destruction, so she stayed as long as she could. Eventually, she couldn't leave the guilds unattended any longer, and left, promising Colt to visit in his dreams every night, knowing Vel would continue to keep an eye on him. So after a year, Ametrine spent the rest of the year permanently intertwining her song with the dead planet and eventually bringing it back to life. While she is unable to bring Ravnica completely back, she takes the place of its soul, becoming the personification of the planet itself, much like her family did in Faerun. The light Avacyn bestowed upon her never faded, and she remains haloed in its soft glow. After 5 years, with the planet's life restored, Ametrine throws her... And again, like, Buck, I don't know what you had in mind for rebuilding efforts. Like, it made it... But in my mind, it was kind of like a wasteland a little bit. Like, things were not well. So she... throws herself into the rebuilding efforts, beginning with immediate essentials. She revitalized the dirt in order to make it viable for planting, as well as created lakes and rivers for clean drinking water. Over time, she aided in the construction and revitalization of buildings throughout the city, starting at the core and working her way out to the rural parts of the city. Bert's merchant vessels were always met with cheers of joy and relief as he unloaded the much-needed supplies for those still displaced by Ravnica's destruction. They quickly transitioned to exotic Faerun goods as the city's manufacturing began to start up again, and Ravnica thrived. People began referring to Ametrine as the Lady of Dreams. After many years, Ametrine's friends began to return to her life as they settled in. So this is after 10 years. Began to settle in Ravnica. And I didn't realize Elian had come 5 years earlier.
Sorry, no, that's good.
all
I think
right.
when I talked to you, I was figuring out the timeline, so I might have.
Yeah, when you told
There's such a thing as unreliable narrator.
Yeah, like last we spoke, you said 10 years.
Okay, yeah, because I put it down because I wasn't sure the timeline of when he was gonna release Astaroth, all that stuff. So I just sorry about that.
It's fine.
That's my fault.
That's why the timeline's a little bit weird. We'll go with your timeline,
Okay.
for sure, but this is what I've got written down. Vel arrived wanting Tez to continue his studies in the Strixhaven Academy. Ametrine helped Vel set up her social services program in downtown, close to the academy, so she wouldn't have a long commute, and Tez could still live with her. Elian arrived with Matthew, and they also settled near the academy, where Elian would eventually get a job teaching, and Matthew would as well. Mom.
Sorry. That's funny to me.
Mom, can my friends come to the academy later?
God,
I'm proud of
Mom,
you.
we're
You're
trying to
embarrassing.
talk about the academy. I'm setting up social services, Mom.
You guys are the worst.
Yeah, we are. We are.
You know, that's the thing we love about the North, always making sure everybody's got a thing.
Wow.
Leave me alone.
Nice.
Amazing.
So soon after finishing the core, so this is kind of like the 15-year mark. Soon after finishing the core, old rivalries between the guilds began to resurface. Though her tenants prevented them from doing anything serious, Ametrine worked hard to alleviate the tensions brewing around her. She grew distant from her friends as her self-imposed responsibilities to the people of Ravnica soon took her attention. After several years of trying and failing to negotiate peace, she pulled away from society and disappeared. During her retreat, Ravnica suffered through long bouts of crop failure and drought. However, her tenants remained in place. Rumors spread, and many pointed fingers at the guilds for causing her disappearance and the cause of their grief. So, as of 20 years, she remains unheard of.
Okay. I am also making notes on these things. Okay. Then that leaves us with last, but most certainly not
Most
least,
certainly not least.
Yes.
Valhalla.
Hey.
Alrighty. Okay, so Val, initially, she thinks about what, like, after it's over, she's like, it's over. We can move on. And she, thinks about how she's always wanted to create a wonderful childhood for Tez. And then she thinks about all she has to do is help Colt grieve and get over it. And that's, like, not an easy task, but, like, he's helped her do it before. When they first met, Val was grieving Tez, and yes, he's alive now, and yes, she did search through hell to get him, but that's because he was in hell. Colt helped her grieve and get over it, and understand that while she may have been culpable, she still needed to live her own life, and Val knows she can do that for Colt too. So, she sets aside her dreams for now, to help Colt for, she's sure, a short time. And Colt is heavily grieving for a while. And she feels at least partially responsible because she used her wish on Ametrine. She wouldn't change what she did, but she wishes she could have gotten them both back. Unfortunately, her wishes no longer have that power. Yeah, so she spends a while just making sure he eats and drinks and does all the basics for a few months, and he starts slowly getting out there and actually reading letters and, you know, recovering, as you've seen in his story. But he's not over it yet. Even when he goes to the graveyard and he says he thinks he's found a way out of it, there's something about him. He's not done with his mourning yet. He's still in the denial stage, it seems. And so she has to stay, she has to help him. I mean, he's helping teach Colt is helping teach his useful skills, and she needs to be there for Colt. Colt needs her. She's the only one that he has left. While she doesn't approve of the decisions he made in regards to keeping the Asarak from Alien, she understands his grief has affected his decisions, and he didn't retaliate too badly when she still helped Alien steal it back. But yeah, so she is just helping Colt out. They're going on missions. They're moving. They're not really feeling settled. Like, Tez seems to make friends on a very shallow level because he knows that they won't necessarily be sticking around, and he's in weird places with his schooling where he knows more about some certain things, but he's really behind on others, like any kid that's moved around a lot. And eventually they visit Ravnica for the first time in, I think it was 2 years after. Colt agrees to come to Ravnica and see everyone. And it's just a temporary thing, like, Colt still needs help. They're just visiting. But, whilst they're there, they also visit Silva or Cassius and Xander. And she sees Alien and how Alien started to actually heal a bit. And she sees how different Xander is from Tez, and all the ways she wanted Tez to be happy is how Xander is after all this time. And she looks at Colt and she thinks he's not going to kill himself, intentionally or unintentionally. And at a certain point, I do have to live my life for myself. And so when Colt comes to her talking about how they have to go raid Marcus's office or something exciting, he's got these conspiracy theories, she has to tell him, I'm not coming. If I go with you, we'll never stop. There'll never not be another thing that's bigger and greater and matters more than me, than Tears. There's always going to be something, and I can't keep doing that. I promised myself that I would not do that to Tears, if nothing else. If I can't go, she tells him that she can't go with him, and she hopes that he knows he's always welcome with her, and she thinks it's bad for him to leave. He should stay there with her, but he doesn't, and he leaves, and she stays. But as much as she has good intentions for Tez, she knows that she's never had a good childhood. She doesn't know many people who have. She doesn't know how to raise a kid, and this is her brother, not her son, and it's hard. So she joins Alien with Clan Tam, wherever they are. I think they are still in Ravnica, but I could have been wrong about that.
Yeah, it's still Ravnica. It's a place that's named later, so there's not really a name, but I forget where I said it was, but yeah, it's still in Ravnica.
Yeah, so she joins Alien and Matthew and Cassius, and she asks for help in being a better, sibling parent to Tez, and who's now at least 12 years old, but joins the same school or apprenticeship or whatever the Clan Tam has going on as Xander, I imagine. Makes good, lasting friendships after a while. She sees him learn and grow to be a better person than she could ever be. And at the same time, after a while, once she can relax a little bit and see that he's doing well, she starts thinking about herself. So she's always she's very similar to Alien. It's always been a weapon of destruction, and one thing after another has made her keep making these violent decisions, and that's not what she wants. She hates that about herself. It is the thing that has always been the worst part, is how volatile her magic is and how destructive it is. And so learning how to tinker and fix things and heal and help rather than hurt and destroy really helps Val. So she learning how to do such. She's not an artificer, fully artificer by any means, but she learns how to help and heal rather than destroy, and that heals her a lot. It helps her a lot. She so she also helps Alien with she learns how to cook, because she's always been interested in food, but she never had the time to sit down and learn how to properly cook, and put work into her passions. And so she learns how to cook really well, and she learns a bit how to bake, and she tries to help Alien eat by making him taste test and helping him learn how to also cook and bake. And I think baking becomes more of Alien's thing and cooking more of Val's, but they learn together. And so Val, sorry, I've just got bullet points here as well, so I'm trying to make sure I'm not.
You're doing great. I love it.
Fantastic.
So yeah, she does the ceremony with Alien after helping. I think Alien's been over all of Alien stuff. She helps with Alien stuff, and then they go through the ceremony. And she also waits because that's 5 years after?
I think so. 5, 6.
5 or 6 years after, and she also needs that time to be able to accept and feel a part of a family. To truly, when that ceremony happens, she feels like she belongs with Clan Tam. She feels like she now has an extended family, and she cries a bit. She's so happy that she finally has this huge family she's always wanted for herself and for Tez. Not just Eliza and Cassius, but she knows that she has the rest of the clan. Not just Colt, she has other people now too, and so does Tez. But she also needs to figure out how to live almost on her own. And so Tez is now 16, I think, 15, 16, and he's incredibly smart. So he's starting his apprenticeship or a university or whatever he decides to do. I'm leaving that kind of loose, but he either starts going to university a bit early, or he starts an apprenticeship. And so she moves to her own apartment, where he still stays a lot of the time. Obviously, he's still only 15 or 16. But he's starting to strike on her own, so she needs to figure out her own thing. So she works part-time at the local boobies restaurant. As a waitress.
Of course.
But she also, Shadow's a healer, and learns how to heal people, not just in Clan Tam it was more focused on machines and more technical stuff. But she was never going to be a surgeon. She wants to learn how to just help people, the basics, and so she starts learning with that. Takes night classes, when Tez fully leaves, once he's about 18, he fully leaves and insists on going into student housing with the university. Wants to have the full experience, even though Val makes sure to have an apartment really close to the university. She starts feeling like something's missing, and she sees all these. From my understanding, there are displaced people in Ravnica, and so there are issues. It's not a utopia or anything. So there is, orphan kids being abused, shit like that, and she starts to notice that because it's very obviously personal to her. So she starts to open her home to some local kids, some that just want to come for mealtime, some that need to stay the occasional night when their home becomes too hostile to them, and then some that just never seem to leave. Eventually she talks to Amatrine about this, and they start making it a formal foster home. They start creating these programs to help children in need, so they expanded. There are other people who are willing to do that, and they also start talking about how Val just needed a community behind her to help raise Tez. She needed people, she needed help, and so they start setting up this charity to help. Some parents might be struggling with addiction after these hard times. They might just be struggling financially. They might not know how to get a job. They might not know how to get a house, or how to get out of a domestic violence situation, some mothers or fathers. So they set up all these various little things to help specific problems that parents may have, also basic parenting classes free for anyone who wants. But yeah, she ends up starting that and running that, but she still has her own home open. She makes huge meals for anyone who needs it can come around to hers for dinner. And she adopts a couple of children. I'm leaving that again very loose. I don't know if Buck wants to do anything with the Longshots in the future, but a couple kids she'll definitely have adopted. She never marries anyone because she's never seen the need for that, but she still has this large and happy family, and that's what she needed. Colt is introduced always as an uncle to these kids. Comes around with the best stories, all child friendly.
All
pies
true,
and
I'm sure.
presents.
And pies.
Yeah, pies and presents as well. And she never tells them, but the kids do rate Alien's pies versus Colt's pies because Alien also bakes and is also an uncle. And yeah, and
That's one awkward day where we're both there just kind of looking at each other eating pies.
yeah.
Ellen, I should roll a D20 to see how good his pies are. But if his specialty is baking, I'm telling you, they're probably great.
Yeah. Colt cheats a bit and brings what's the name? Bismuth pies.
Mm-hmm.
So he's not actually making them himself from my
No.
understanding.
Delegating.
But Alien has more variety. I imagine if Alien's trying a new pastry and makes a big batch or something, they'd probably sometimes bring it around to the kids.
I was gonna say he would probably whenever he would try new recipes or just bake an overabundance of anything. Sometimes he would purposely bake an overabundance just specifically to bring it to Vel and the kids and stuff like that.
Exactly. So Val has this whole charity thing. It's probably called something like It Takes a Village or something to remind people that community matters so deeply and how to help heal and have good lives for everyone. If needed, she starts a communist party or something. I don't know.
That took a turn.
Yeah.
Go ahead, B.
She's very pro the kind of communism where it's shared housing and people call it communism, but it's probably more socialism. But yeah, sorry. What were you saying?
I was going to ask if Bert can be a primary donor to the charity organization.
Oh,
Donors always welcome, but she always invites him to she has huge feasts on Christmas or whatever the holidays they have there, and he's always invited. He's always welcome. She makes sure he knows he can come stay if he's ever in Port at Ravnica. He has to come stay and see the kids, and also will introduce him as an uncle to the kids.
Absolutely, he
anyone
does
Longshots,
that.
Yeah, because he
will-
technically
will
doesn't
also
have a real daughter.
very acutely ask
Tragic.
Valhalla to write up a receipt so that he can submit it as a tax write-off to the Sword Coast Traders Bank.
Love
You'd
that.
help him with that, right?
Yeah.
I think
She's like, well,
There's
well,
the
actually, we have
twist.
these financial literacy classes, so she points them in that direction.
I think during the famine part of this, Colt probably would have organized with Reynolds a relief convoy to make sure that everyone, especially the clan Tam and Val, had everything they needed to get through rough times. So I think we arrive on the ship, Colt and Uma, like the old days of Colt staying on the bow, arriving and whatnot, and just like, well, I thought you need these things.
Yeah, no, she big hugs from Val. With that, she's very relieved because she would have been trying to feed like every single hungry child on the freaking planet if she could.
Bella's is like that one lady on TikTok who like puts a video of people wasting food and then she starts like making a whole bunch of food like super like elegantly. She makes like so much food and like gives it to people. If you don't know what I'm talking about, search it up. It's great.
Yeah, she offers like classes for people to help like grow their own food and how to like use all of the bits that like
Matthew would help out with that since he used to be a farmer. I'm just saying he would offer a service.
Definitely he was the one that like taught her that, maybe. I don't know.
But he would definitely offer his services for sure.
Amazing, thank you. And then
sorry for causing a famine.
What the fuck, Amatrine?
Yeah, definitely if they run too low on funds, and she might break into Amatrine's place and steal a few of the especially valuable gems and stones to fund. Yeah, no, she's like, surely Amatrine wouldn't want the children to still have. No matter what, don't know what she's doing, but this is not what she wanted. But yeah, a couple notes I have here on paper from previous epilogues. Colt gives her the letter saying like he doesn't he says something about he doesn't think she's made decisions that he would not like and stuff. She avoids responding to this because she's definitely still like really disappointed in him about how he dealt with the whole SRHM thing in Alien, and she definitely sided with Alien. But Colt needed her more at the time, so that's why she stuck around with him, and she knows that he was like really emotional and not making good decisions. But she doesn't want to like tell him, she doesn't think he needs to hear that anymore. So she avoids that part. But when he says something about hoping he's a good influence, she like makes sure he knows that the only reason that no one's died from Vel's experimental cooking is that he gave her charts about what mushrooms are safe for people to eat and stuff like that. He's definitely a good influence. And he's definitely really good with the kids, and she tells him that he's the favorite uncle, but she tells everyone that they're the favorite aunt or uncle, to be fair. But yeah, she does tell him that, and that he's definitely a very good influence for the kids, and she's definitely a little bit like, she asks him some like slightly probing questions about Uma when she first meets her, like she's like worried about Colt. She's still like, she's healing, but she's still got some trust issues as well, and she's like, what's going on there? Like, are you trusting her too much because you want to sleep with her, or like, she definitely wants to know a bit more about Uma.
I would say there's no vibe, very much work friend vibes. Don't flirt whatsoever. He seems to be annoyed by her sometimes. She doesn't even have a braid in her hair, which is usually he gives to folks that he cares deeply about, but just someone that helps keep him organized, apparently.
Okay, yeah, so she's suspicious about that at first, but eventually grows used to it. Oh, the braid thing was something I was going to say early on. When Colt refuses to braid his own hair, she will offer to braid it for him and try and braid it for him and keep it clean and stuff. And does he accept that, or does he not want it braided? Like, really early on, like,
yeah,
in the couple weeks following.
I think he says he doesn't care, but he kind of like, it's like the feeling of wrapping in a warm blanket of her doing that kind of calms him down, so he definitely would never not turn that down. And even after he kind of gets better, he would probably ask her to do it every now and again.
Wonderful. And
never,
she also like
he never
makes
never
him
sees,
braid her hair.
Oh yeah, absolutely. She would never see Uma do it to his hair.
Okay. Okay, cool. Yeah, so she's definitely like, definitely not a family person, but obviously still someone trusted.
I did manage to get. Oh, my mic is on good. The final epilogue I had for you.
Okay.
All right, I'll just quickly wrap up. I think there's one more thing I was gonna say. Yeah, so she knows Colt is she's never like as close to Colt as she was before because she feels like she kind of betrayed him in a way, but also she doesn't regret it. She would do everything the same again. So,
I think she would get the sense that he's tells his stories, but he's leaving things out for either his own sake or for her sake.
Yeah, she definitely gets that sense. And where before she would have prodded and poked until she got answers out of him, she's a lot less like that because she doesn't believe that she fully has the right to know everything about his life like before. So that's kind of sad in its own way. Like, she accepts that she can't make him heal the way he helped her heal. He's never going to. And so, yeah, that's how that bit ends. And let me just double check that I haven't missed anything.
These are all great guys. I'll tell you what. I love these.
Oh yeah, one quick anecdote is that so he comes every 7 to 12 days, and one time, but like it's never set, but like he tends to come by the time 12 days from his last visit has passed, right? Like so he like Colt likes to come visit. One day it's 14 days since he's visited, and she's like, right, I'm going to get him. She like makes sure that Alien's keeping an eye on Tez, and she gears up for the first time in years and like her old long shot scare, which is really hard for her to do, but she's like, Colt needs me. He's obviously got on some shit. And she goes to where she knows he would have last been, as most likely his headquarters, to find him sitting upstairs perfectly fine, just dealing with the aftermath of some random thing, like he just forgot to write to say he was going to be late because he never has a set time that he's never later. And so she shows up like fully geared, ready to like kick some ass, which she had said she would never do again.
He would be immensely embarrassed, and Uma would says, I told you it was 14 days. Like, I'm pretty sure it was... pies!
It's just like, don't you do that to me again. Like, I had a heart attack. And I definitely need to go back to therapy for a bit after this, because... and hugs him tightly and just says, make sure not to miss an appointment again. And, so just to show that, like, she will still... show up for him if it comes really down to it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's all I have. If anyone got any questions or responses to what she said, feel free. But
I'm curious. Would she have mentioned to Colt about the whole "Hey, we're gonna go do the Force thing with Azrak" thing, or
no?
Okay.
100%. Nothing to do with Alien. So she's not going to be Colt's spy for Alien. She refuses to tell unless Alien asks Colt to say something. Her to say something to Colt. She's not going to be relaying things about Alien. She's not going to be saying zip all about anything to do with Alien because she believes Colt was in the wrong and needs to.
Oh, I don't do that. It sounded rather dangerous whether he would clue him into like, hey, this, just so you know.
That's why in my epilogue I wrote the events of that night stay with those who were there, because the events of that night stay with those who were there. They're not gonna talk about it. Like, we would have had an agreement to like not talk about it with anybody.
Yeah. Like Colt is.
Show up the day after, everyone looks really tired.
Alien. Right. Like, if she feels the need, if she felt the need for like safety reasons to let someone know what was going on, it would not be Colt. It would be maybe Amatrine, but she probably wouldn't have, unless agreed upon with Alien, and definitely not without agreeing to Alien.
Sure.
But not Colt, because she knows what went down between them, and she doesn't want to come between that, but she also sides with Alien in a way.
I'll message you later, like, what happened. I don't know if we talked about it, that's why, but I'll message you later what happened. But Avella would have been like, okay, yeah, we're fine. Like, it's
cool.
good.
Yeah, no, it's just, yes, no one knew. She never told anyone.
Harsh, but I understand.
Yeah, like, she still loves Colt, and she still talks to him about everyone else, but, like, Alien, she's like, they need to sort their own shit together, and I'm not going to be, like, telling either of you about either of you.
Sent a pie. The pie's in her court.
It's too many pies. So many pies.
Yeah, I'm like, wow, the pies.
That's his thing now. He always has a pie on him for some reason.
Apparently.
Well, I am intensely proud of what each of you were able to accomplish, not only through the campaign, but with crafting your own stories for yourselves as you wish. And you know who else was paying attention to
No, who?
all of your lives? From the depths of Time's river, Krampus keeps his eyes on the Longshots.
Oh.
His presence intricately woven into the very essence of their adventuring souls. And with the years going by, his voice resonates, and the secrets that they've held up against their own minds. 2 decades having stretched their fingers through the veil of existence, and yet your names still carve their mark upon the annals of fate. The tales of your journeys themselves have been woven into the tapestry of time, binding you together in a series of trials and transformations. Elian, whose personality could very well be described as an enigma, had you navigating the corridors of your own mind. In the end, managing to find a purpose and a place. Ametrine, whose arcane powers have channeled the very essence of the world itself. Spells whispering incantations across realms, and your connection to the mystic arts, a symphony. Yet, even in the resonance, you maintained a bipartisan nature, and were not consumed by the power you wield. Rue, though Krampus may normally frown on petty theft, your thievery was more funny. Krampus is still watching you carefully every December 25th. Colt, your rapier and bullets, a song of precision. Your heart beats in rhythm with the series of quips and sword slashes. As you stand before a precipice of choice, remember that at any time a crossroad could await. Vel, your devotion to healing and maintaining the balance of violence in life has become the choice that will define you. And so, as your choices loom, Krampus checks his notes. Wait. What happened to Meow? Who did he get replaced with? Maybe about 17 years after the end of the campaign, Burt Reynolds wakes up on the Musty Mermaid to be haunted by one spirit in particular, now reformed. So, you're gonna get Christmas caroled tonight. Just bear with me. Apparently, we're making up for lost time. You're supposed to replace another guy. Canonically, Burt Reynolds will now have to go through the Christmas caroling of Krampus because he had completely forgotten that Meow was not around.
That's fucking amazing.
However, being satisfied with their progress as human beings, for the most part, Krampus leaves an air of anticipation and a challenge that maybe one day he'll have to visit them again. Sent directly from Krampus.
Wow.
Thank you, Krampus.
I wasn't there for the Christmas thing, but I recognize it.
Thank you.
That's good. Thank
So,
you, Krampus.
We take a quick 5.
We should most definitely take a quick 5. When we return, we roll stats. We
Yay!
introduce our characters. I think it's time.
Yay!
Oh, a blank screen, everyone. Blank
Amazing.
screen. No characters up here yet. When we get back, we'll look out. We'll be right back.